we are known throughout the world for our straight white teeth. And it's a big deal to have an American clinician working on you. It was a little bit of culture shock when I got back. It is really eye-opening to see how little you can live with and be happy. You have to be brave to just store everything, pick up and go. I arrived and the office manager and one of the dentists met me and they took me to the apartment, which the clinic actually rents because you as a foreigner don't just get to go rent an apartment. The vehicle was in the practice's name and basically they said, here's a map. When you wake up tomorrow, the location is on the map. So when you wake up, show up at the clinic.
Yeah, this is a tale, oh yeah, a tale of two hygienists. So there might be only one, bringing the best of dental knowledge, and we do it all with ease. We cover oral health and screening, and preventing gum disease. We're gonna do a lot of learning, and have a little bit of fun working at the dentist. A tale of two hygienists.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of A Tale of Two Hygienists, an Endeavor Business Media production. This is episode number 396. I'm your host, Andrew Johnston, and thank you so much for making us a part of your day. Well, today is the day, everyone, the day you've all been waiting for. This is the episode where we welcome in Tricia Husbands to talk about her experience working in Oman. Oman, for those of you who are maybe geographically challenged, is in the Middle East. It borders the Arabian Sea. It is east of Saudi Arabia and the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, and south of Iran, but it's across the Gulf of Oman to get there. Anyway, so working there was in so many ways different for her, but also, as you're going to hear, there were a lot of similarities, a lot of things that she just felt comfortable with. So you'll hear what we did as far as the recording in two different parts. The first one was recorded at RDH Under One Roof, and we started getting into it. And then, as the excitement goes, there's not enough time to say all the things that you want to say. And then she was thinking about it, and she's like, I really want to dive in a little bit deeper on a couple of other aspects, namely the application process and some more thoughts around like the culture and things like that. So you're really going to love this episode. Next week, we have Brooke Crouch, a fan favorite, returning to the show. She was kind enough to come on and talk to us about a recent experience that she had dealing with a family member's colon cancer diagnosis and what impact that had on the family. And then she also wanted to talk about what she as a dental professional feels that we all need to be looking out for when it comes to reviewing that section on the medical dental history and how we can get better about doing that and like what we can expect, what follow-up questions we need to ask, things like that. This Friday, I'm recording another travel-based episode with Mary Jensen. She's been on the show before if you want to go back and listen to her episodes. She does dental mission trips revolving around cleft palate. And so she participates in those. I'm really looking forward to having that out for you all in a few weeks. Then at the beginning of next month, the beginning of September, we're going to come back to the roundtables for that first episode each month that we used to do. This time, it's not going to be student focused necessarily, but it's going to be just roundtables because I really did miss doing that. It's a lot of fun just having, all the energy and multiple people having opinions on things. I want to bring those ones back at least once a month. So please do me a favor. We are 4 ratings away from 200 ratings on the Apple Podcast, and I would love to make that mark. So if you could please just take a second, you person, I'm talking to you. If you don't think I'm talking to you, I'm talking to you. Take a minute and go just hit the little rate button on the podcast. That's all you have to do. I don't need you to leave a review, although I'd really love that too. But I just want to hit that 200 mark. I don't know if it's just a personal pride thing or whatever, but we're only 4 away. It's ridiculous not to be there yet. So if you would do that, I'd be very, very thankful. That is all for me for this week. Please enjoy this episode with Tricia Husbands.
A tale of two hygienists.
Welcome in, everyone, to the interview portion of the podcast. Really excited. We're still at RDH Under One Roof. You're going to hear, so just as a heads up, I'll probably say this in the intro when I record that too, but it's going to get loud in here. It's going to be like the other RDH Under One Roof interviews that you've heard in the past. But right now, the exhibit hall is not quite open for another probably 10 minutes. So if we can get through most of this before that happens, that'd be great. But no promises. I'm joined today by Tricia Husbands. Right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having me.
We have a joint friend that we should probably shout out because we do love her, right?
Yes.
Her name is Andrea. No, I'm just kidding. Her name's Melissa. How did you and Melissa ever,
We went to high school together.
That's not true.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Did I know that? I don't know if I knew that.
I don't know.
So you guys went to high school together?
Yes.
Where do you live now?
I live in Vancouver, where I went to high school.
Oh, that's right. We did talk about that already.
Yeah,
Vancouver.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. Wait, so she's from Vancouver? I feel like this is how bad of a friend I am. Like, I'm sure she has told me all of this stuff that whoosh, all the way through my brain. Okay, so you guys met in high school, and then did you have you guys kept in touch the whole time through the hygiene journey, or one became a hygienist first? What happened there?
So she became a hygienist first. So we did ballet together.
Okay.
And her mom took me with her to ballet. And I was more friendly with her mom at first. Like, her mom will tell you, Tricia was my friend first.
Oh, my gosh.
And
That's because Melissa was a brat, though, as a child, if we're being honest.
No, well, she was a year behind me. And we only had one class together. And,
Yeah.
so...
So it's not like you guys were, in homeroom together doing all the different things. Okay.
No, we weren't joined at the hip.
No, that makes sense.
So,
Okay. So then she went to hygiene, and did you know that she was in hygiene when you were planning on doing hygiene?
Yes, she told me after they moved to Texas, she told me that she was going to be going to hygiene school. And I was like, hygiene school? What are you talking about? She's like, well, my mom's a hygienist, And I'm like, she is? I had no idea that her mom worked at all. Because when I came over to their house, her mom was always there.
Sure.
And she was there to take us to ballet and bring us home. And,
It's like, what kind of magical profession is dental
this
hygiene?
dental hygiene. And so both Judy and Melissa mentored me as I was going through the prerequisite process and then applying to hygiene schools.
But independent of them, you probably also wanted to be a hygienist, yeah? Like that. Were they the ones that really pushed you and drove you to it?
So I hadn't really ever considered health sciences.
Interesting.
When I was going to college, did well in sciences, did great in chemistry and things like that. Math, not so much. Math is not my strong suit.
Same.
It's a language that I speak with great difficulty, right?
No fluency from me on that language.
Yeah. So then Melissa was out working in the field, and I was working at the Boeing company at the time as a quality assurance specialist, and she was making the same amount of money in 30 hours a week that I was making in 40.
Wow.
And then 9/11 happened. We had a big downturn. All of my colleagues who were not quite retirement age were like, "Oh my gosh, downturn. They're going to get rid of us, and there's going to be a surplus." And there was.
Sure.
Right? And who's going to hire somebody who's 54, not quite ready to retire? And so there was great concern there. And I was married at the time. And when I got married, I had met my spouse there at the Boeing company. And so for both of us to be working at the same place, we kind of, he went off and worked at Kenworth, and then I discovered hygiene.
And then where did you go to school?
I went to school in Michigan at Mott Community College in Flint.
Interesting.
Yes.
So Flint, by the way. So
Yes.
we won't even talk about that. So that's a whole other podcast. So you went over there, and you got licensed over there first?
Yes.
And then came back to Washington?
Yes.
And then the big reveal is, I want to talk when you went abroad to go
Okay.
work. Like that's That's really the big
That's
deal of the
the
day.
story,
That's the
right?
story.
Right.
So but I love timelines. I love kind of linear thinking, whatever. So were you actively practicing in Michigan?
I was.
For how many years were you doing that?
Let's see. I graduated in 2006, and I was practicing until 2009 was when I started working on. So, of course, the economy
With 08, right?
tanked.
Yeah.
And my ex-husband got laid off twice in 6 months.
Rough, yeah.
And I was like, I can get my license for Washington and Oregon and keep us afloat. I'll live with family, and I'll keep us afloat until we get things sorted here.
How was the transition from, as far as licensure? Did you get initial license in Washington and then go back for restorative and do all that stuff?
Yes. So I got an initial license, and then Melissa helped me with the local anesthetic portion, and Bobby provided me with all of the restorative items.
That's so nice.
And I did a summer and had to take Reb twice for restorative. It's hard.
It is hard.
It's hard.
Thankfully hard.
Yes. And managed to do the local anesthesia portion successfully the first time. But the girls really put the fear of God in me. You will know after you take the written exam whether or not you get to move on to the injection portion.
Yeah.
So
I remember when we did ours, we went down to Portland to do, because I went to school in Yakima. So we went down to go to Portland to do the written and the clinical local anesthesia. I think it was just that, though. I don't think that there was, because the patient-based clinical and then also the restorative mannequin was both in Spokane for us.
okay.
So we went down there, and we were in this little classroom, and it was obviously the lecture hall was like that little semicircle. And I think there wasn't just us, there's a bunch of schools there. I would say probably 10% failed the written. And when we all came back and we'd all passed the written, not all of us passed the clinical, but we all passed the written, our teachers were ecstatic. They were so proud.
Yeah.
We did have probably one of the best local anesthesia teachers that you could have. But, okay, so passed all the boards. You worked in Washington and Oregon at the time? Or
I worked in Oregon. I got a full-time position in Oregon, and then my marriage unraveled. And, you regroup.
Yeah.
And I looked at it as an opportunity to go and work abroad.
Okay, so let's talk about this, because you see in the social media forums a lot that people are like, hey, what does it take to go work in X country, Australia or somewhere in Europe or whatever? Were you specific? So Oman is where you ended up going, right?
Yes.
So were you specifically looking to work in Oman?
No, not specifically.
Tell us where the interest came first, how'd that unravel?
Okay, so when I lived in Michigan and was practicing hygiene in Michigan, Melissa had seen a posting in the Seattle Dental Hygienists Association's job posting page about the American Dental Center in Muscat, Oman. And she forwarded it on to me, and I did a little research. I contacted them. They were looking for a hygienist. And the big difficulty at the time, this was probably 2007 or so, the big difficulty at the time was that I hadn't been in practice long enough. You had to be in practice for, I think, 3 years.
Okay.
They were recommending. And then I was married, and as a woman, I cannot sponsor my spouse for a visa. So the clinic would sponsor me for a visa.
But they wouldn't sponsor your spouse
But they will
because
not.
It's not a work visa?
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Interesting.
So
So you heard about this opportunity, you did the research. At the time, what did you know about Oman?
very little. What they sent me.
Okay.
So they sent me a packet about the culture.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of two sultanates in the world. The other one is Brunei, right?
And that sultan, by the way, I hope he doesn't hear about the podcast, was crazy. In Brunei, right? Super rich, very lavish lifestyle. Can't remember if he's still alive or not. But anyways, interesting. And that's a whole side. There's another podcast about that if you guys want to listen to it. But anyways, continue on. So it's one of two sultanates.
And so basically we tried to find my ex-husband a job. Didn't happen. And so, you move on. You table it, right?
Sure.
When I got divorced, I was like, I can do this. I can do this now. And
in the meantime, did you do more Google searches of,
other places?
Muscat?
Yeah, Muscat.
Muscat? Okay. So
Muscat
I'm not really sure.
is the capital city.
Okay.
It has a population of 1.7 million.
Oh, big.
Most of the population lives in Muscat or the surrounding areas. There are still people who live a nomadic Bedouin type lifestyle. There is a portion of an empty quarter, so the neighbors are UAE to the north. It's the eastern border of the Arabian Peninsula. So if you're a Michigander, you're familiar with the hand, right? Okay. So the Arabian Peninsula looks kind of like this, right? And it is, I'm making a fist, and none of you can see that.
None of the listening audiences really know, but keep going with your fist analogy.
So the border, the eastern border of the Arabian Peninsula, to the north is the UAE, to the south is Yemen, and to the interior is Saudi. So, I'm American. My geography is not great.
Same.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was a learning process. They are some of the nicest, most welcoming, generous people I have ever met.
But you wouldn't expect that, based on also the stories that we hear here.
What you hear, yes.
The fact that the bordering countries are so...
restrictive.
Conservative, restrictive.
Yes.
It's interesting that you're kind of explaining this. And I would imagine, too, would there be a language barrier?
So the Sultan, not the new Sultan, the old Sultan, he really believed in educating his people and preparing for a time when there would be no more oil and gas.
Oh.
And so Sultan Qaboos, his endeavors were to educate the people, set up industry. So there's a new airport. They have an IKEA now.
That's how you know you made it. Now, when Costco gets there, then they really made it. But
then they've really made it.
IKEA is a good step in the right direction.
They're also the third sect of Islam. They're Abadi. So it's very live, let live. And there is every type of religious persuasion that is allowed in the country.
Is it allowed or welcomed?
Well,
tolerated, I guess I should say.
So the Sultan would give land grants to allow for Catholic churches. Okay. There was a ward for Latter-day Saints.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Live, let live. And not restrictive. Ladies drive. Ladies are educated. How much someone covers or veils is up to them.
Yeah. But you didn't struggle so they're trying to be progressive, so they must have had English somewhat implemented into some of the society?
Higher education.
Okay.
Sure.
So the children didn't necessarily speak it, but as they...
Many of the children would speak some, depending upon the location of their education. So in some of the smaller cities, smaller towns, maybe not so much.
Sure.
But in the metropolis, yes.
Okay. Now, are American films and I guess Western music and stuff like that, is that popular, or was it popular when you were there?
So American films the cinema is a very big deal there because in the summer it's very hot, right? We're talking 120, 130. My girlfriends and I, we would go and spend the day at the cinema and go from one film to the next, basically. So, yes, American films. Yes, American radio. The films are edited
For conservative,
for
so no R-rated stuff.
no R-rated stuff.
Interesting. Okay.
So, but
So a little bit of filtering, but not terribly.
not terribly.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Sometimes terribly. Okay.
You know, the film that you see there may not be the film that you see here. Not super, like, there might be some pretty big chunks missing depending upon how
Got you.
risque we're talking. You know, certain websites are inaccessible. I went to watch something like The Good Wife, CBS's The Good Wife,
Yeah.
and pop-up blocker. The Ministry on Morality says this is a no-go.
Wow.
You know.
Okay.
So
Kind of like it though. I mean, I don't like that kind of, like, I guess high or low level censorship at that point, but I do kind of like that there's like a ministry that does this. There's a ministry that there's a group that is overseeing all of these things.
yeah.
So when you would, let's just talk about like everyday life, because you are a hygienist going to work 5 days a week. What's the work week look like?
So the work week, 40 hours. They're hopeful. And
I feel like I want that explained a little bit more.
So do you know what the term inshallah means?
Not even close. I
Okay.
don't know.
So that's Arabic for if God wills it.
Okay.
Okay. So you might have your day set up for 10 hours and a patient every hour, but you might only get 5 or 6
Because the patients don't show up?
because the patients don't come because something else has happened and intervened in their life and it didn't work out that day.
And that's the kind of laissez-faire attitude they have about it?
Yes.
Like something just intervened. It's
Yes.
Because the way you described it's very interesting.
Yes. So,
No
you know,
family emergency, but it's like,
something else happened.
I just found out about a birthday party, so I want to go there instead. It's like-
I
So would you not get paid for those other 5 hours?
I was straight commission,
Oh.
30%.
And that's pretty normal over there?
That was fairly normal.
Okay.
Now, I know someone who worked in Saudi, and she was from Australia, hygienist from Australia.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, no, I'm sorry, that is incorrect. Hygienist from South Africa.
Dude, this accent almost sounds the same. Sorry to all the South Africans. And also all the Australians, they don't like that either.
So I think she had a base and then also got a percentage.
Okay.
So my experience was that for the first month that I was there, when I was getting my bearings and figuring out what was what, paid for the apartment, the car, and gave me like a base salary. And then after I had kind of found my footing, then it was straight commission.
So how much time had elapsed at that point? Was that a few months or was that just like a couple weeks?
Couple weeks, a month.
Oh, wow. So they're like
A month.
on it. Okay.
Yeah. So the apartment was only paid for a month, and then I had to cover the rent and, make enough.
Because you're paid on commission, well, first let me ask this. Were there any other hygienists in the office that you were at?
So there was another hygienist in the office. She was from South Africa. It was her sister that worked in Saudi.
Oh, funny.
Okay.
Yeah.
And she was the long-term hygienist there. She only worked part-time. She had a child. And her husband worked for BP, I think. Okay.
Yeah.
She could set her own hours and like that. But the majority of the patients knew her
So they'd wanna go see her, probably.
she was there. And then the previous hygienist, I think there were 2. There was my friend Sherry, who was a hygienist from Texas. And then I'm not sure who the next person was exactly or where she was from. So, and they vet you, basically.
Sure.
They want to know how long you've been practicing, what your scope of practice is. The Sultanate will accept your regional board and the licensure from wherever you are.
Mm-hmm.
And so the dentist that was the practice manager, Dr. Faraz, he was educated in Ohio, if I remember correctly.
So let me ask this then. Are there no hygiene schools in Oman? Is that why there's all foreigners here?
So there was no hygiene schools and not even a dental school until I think it was the dental school opened the second year that I was there. I was there for 2 years.
Okay. And was there a hygiene program within the dental program?
No.
Still no.
No. The dentists were learning some hygiene. And in other parts of the world, it is very common for the dentist to do your cleaning.
I mean, it's comprehensive dentistry for them, right? It's just like you just do all of it. You can, when I haven't worked up there, but my assumption would be, if you're doing some sort of perio procedure, you're already going to be numbing up that area anyway for your restorative, knock out that perio, do the quad or half mouth or whatever at the time. I mean, it does make sense. I don't love that idea, obviously, as a hygienist, but,
So, as a hygienist, what I can tell you is, having seen work from other places in the world, some of the work is very good, some of the hygiene is good.
Yeah.
And then some of the hygiene is very, very bad. So, I had a patient from Jordan who had the sprocket collars under the gum line.
Yeah.
And it came off in a perfect half moon. Like the patient didn't understand why, and this person had great English, well-traveled. Why is this taking so long? And I'm like, oh, well, let me show you. Yeah. And so I pulled out the big half moon of tartar, and this is what is on your teeth. But I've been getting my teeth cleaned in Oman. How can this be? And I'm like, well, they've probably been polishing your teeth, but there are things under the gum line. And see, we can see it on the x-ray right here.
Let's talk about fee schedule. So for scaling and root planing, for our prophies, for fluorides, for all of that, is it similar to what we have in the U.S.?
It is similar. I believe that the fees at that time, so this is, let's see, I left the States December 31st, 2011. Okay. I arrived on January 1st, 2012. So, this is a bit ago.
Yeah.
But at the time, I believe it was pretty similar. I think it was like $130 for a prophy and $200 for SPT.
Are you converting that to what U.S. dollars are, or is that what
That was the U.S. dollar fee.
And restorative was similar in prices as well?
So, I don't know about the restorative fees because I didn't concern myself with what the dentists were doing. I got 30% of my whitening, bite wings, full mouth, scaling and root plane, everything.
Yeah.
So whatever I did, 30% was mine.
That's interesting. So what's the cost of living then? Because it's got to be similar to the United States at that point.
So the cost of living in some ways is less. So like you go to the theater and it's like 2 reals. So it's, $8, let's say. The popcorn and the soda is like a real. So you get both for $3.6.
So 1 real is $3.6.
Yes.
Which means that it's stronger than the dollar for those who are not really great at this. So it's more affluent country than at that point.
Yes.
So then the cost of, let's go back to, what were we saying, to enter into the cinema was 2 real?
2 reals.
Ish or so.
Yeah.
So $7, $8 somewhere in there.
Yes.
Okay. And then what was the cost of, what did you say next? Popcorn or something?
Like a real.
Interesting.
$3.6.
So it really is, very similar.
So it some things are a lot cheaper, and then other things are as expensive. So rent was as expensive.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And renting a car definitely was a big expense.
Really?
Yeah.
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 Did you need a car to get around, or did they have good public transportation
Absolutely.
system?
No. This is a city that is very spread out along the coastline, and public transportation is not great. So mostly there was a very good taxi system that you could use, and taxis were not expensive.
Oh, interesting.
So, it's very safe there. Incredibly safe.
Because everyone's scared to make a mistake because of the punishments, or why is it so safe there?
I guess, yes, that could be. Part of it is that, if you're caught doing something you're not supposed to be doing, swift and severe,
Yeah,
right?
Right.
A very good sized police force also.
Okay.
And then I would say that most of the people that I have met there, Omanis, have a very strong moral compass.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
So they're just inclined to do right.
they are
if they
inclined
can.
to do
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
So if you were going to go out grocery shopping or things like that, was it the same, supermarkets that we have here? Was it different?
Carrefour, which is French, British. There's Carrefour like all over France, Aldi.
Oh, we know Aldi.
Let's see, what else? There's more things when you go to, say, Abu Dhabi or to Dubai. So more international brands there.
Was it difficult to find the things that you liked? I mean, I would imagine like there's going to be like Kellogg's or things like that over there, right?
There's a very strong British presence there, because when the Sultan overthrew his father, Britain helped them. Okay.
Yeah.
So in the
Makes sense.
bloodless coup,
Sure.
Yeah. So
Tell me about perio rates and caries rates that you saw there with the populations compared to what you see now practicing.
depending on, so most of the people that I saw were of really strong socioeconomic status.
Okay.
So the people who are the importers and the exporters of the country, basically the car dealership owners, the royal family, ministry, cabinet. So those people would previously have gone to get their dental work done in the UK, say on Harley Street.
I don't know the reference, but that must be a well-off place, Harley Street?
Yes. I've never been to Britain. That is what I'm told. These are not people who would use the NHS, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Because they are not citizens, or they may have dual citizenship, but
they would pay out of pocket.
They would pay out of pocket. And the American Dental Center was set up to do all cash, basically, or there was no insurance consideration for that.
So I'm just not putting it together. The American Dental Center, explain the American part of it.
Okay, so these are clinicians who have been trained in America, for the most part.
Oh,
Not all of them, but many of them, most of them. We are known throughout the world for our straight, white teeth.
Sure.
And it's a big deal to have an American clinician working on you.
Really?
Yeah.
So interesting.
So, they see the white coat and, oh, Dr. Tricia,
Yeah.
how are you today?
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter that you explain to them, I'm not a dentist, I'm not a doctor. You're the clinician, you're the doctor.
Yeah.
To them.
Yeah. So interesting. So how long were you over there total?
2 years.
2 whole years.
2 years.
Did you pick up any language skills?
A little bit. You learn to say open, close, swish, spit. I still can say shukran, thank you. Well, you're welcome, afwan. But that's, pretty much the limit. And hello,
Sure. The basics to pleasantries kind of
the
thing.
pleasantries, yeah.
And then, so you came back and then you started working in Washington at that point, Oregon?
Yes. I found a job in Washington when I came back.
And how different did it feel working with American patients?
Well, our society is much more litigious.
You don't say.
And so, although I kept malpractice insurance while I was abroad, I wasn't afraid that anyone would sue me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a little bit of culture shock when I got back,
Yeah.
Just, it is really eye-opening to see how little you can live with,
And be happy.
and
with
be
it.
happy
Yeah.
and be happy. And, it's a very family-oriented society.
Mm-hmm.
And so people are out late at night
Mm-hmm.
and early in the morning. And, during the winter months, it's beautiful. It's 70s and 80s. And just families out walking at 11 o'clock at night,
Yeah. Yeah.
Although social media and our phones were starting to really make a presence during that period of time.
Sure.
Possibly because of the morality ministry and what is accessible and what is not accessible. I don't feel like there was as much digital presence while I was there.
So they probably would have restricted like the gaming, like the little apps you could play with, the games you could play and all of that, I'm sure. Probably even the ads that are being seen on some of those games. 'Cause there are some not good ones. I'm like, how did this get, like, I'm an adult. What if my kid would have saw this,
Right.
So,
Right.
would you go back?
Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting.
In a heartbeat. I have a house now, though. So
Now you're here. Now you're anchored here.
I'm anchored.
Let's talk about if someone else wanted to kind of maybe not follow the exact footsteps that you took, but did want to go abroad. Do you have any like big picture pieces of advice for them?
So I would say do your research. The American military is always a great option. I applied for a job in Italy at Aviano. That was my first choice, right? But they weren't hiring at the time. And you can do that as a contractor, basically. And then the other portion of that is just that, you have to remember that standard of care is different.
Yeah.
And European Union, those countries that belong to, there's a certain amount of protectionism for jobs in that country, And that is one of the reasons why Oman went through the process of opening up a dental school and like that. So.
Yeah. No, I love it. I think it's great. I've been able to travel abroad, mission trips, whether it's for, religious or dentistry. And I just think that, one, everyone should do it because the lessons that you learn are amazing. If you have the opportunity to go work abroad, oh man, one, I'd be super jealous. Two, I want you on the podcast. So I'd love to hear about it. But again, I think that when we travel in any extent, I think our eyes are opened a little bit more. I think we come back and I think you and I probably actually had a very similar like eye-opening experience when we came back to the States where it's like, oh, this is how we behave in the States. Like you kind of lose that perspective unless you've been somewhere else for an extended period of time, especially a more conservative country.
Yeah.
But I love the idea of people going abroad.
I would highly recommend it. Absolutely.
All right, everyone. So this is part 2. It's what I was talking about in the intro. Trish and I just were talking afterwards that we wanted to, add some more depth to the conversation. It goes back, Trish, when we started doing the podcast, 2015 or whatever, we'd have hour-long, conversations. And, I've been trying to keep it like that 20 to 30 minute mark. And I'm like, dang, this one didn't work for a 20 or 30 minute mark. It needs to be a little bit longer. So thank you for coming back on and chit-chatting with me.
Well, thank you for having me.
How are you doing? How's your recovery from Under One Roof?
It's taken a little bit. I'm not going to lie. We were there a couple of days afterwards and we slept like until 9 a.m. that Sunday after. And so, it was good to have that extra time. So.
I mean, that's only 7 a.m. your time though, right? So is that even sleeping then? Come on. So, same with us. We actually stayed, came back on Sunday. My wife went, Allison was there, who you met.
Mm-hmm.
It was just that was probably the best under one roof I've ever been to. I can't think of like a better experience I've ever had at any one of the shows. Just I loved it.
It was amazing. It was really amazing.
But you've been before, right? This wasn't your first under one
No,
roof,
this
was it?
was my first go.
Oh, it's all downhill from here, friend. I'm so sorry. You got the best. Now it's going to not live up to that expectations. But
Well, I don't think Bobby and Melissa are game for next year because I think they're going to be focusing in on Philippines. So
yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. That's a whole nother podcast that we're going to talk about because I can't wait for everyone to go to that. All right. So here's the thing. Let's jump right into it. So I think one of the first things we need to talk about that we kind of maybe omitted, and I'll let you lead this if you feel like one of these should go, before the other, but we wanted to kind of hone in on the interview process. So do you want to just take it away with the interview process, or do you want to talk about visas first?
Sure. So I would expect, my experience was that the interview process was quite protracted. Okay. And there were several stops and starts. They don't want to bring someone who is not going to fit. Likewise, you don't want to be someplace where you are the odd man out. And so you can expect, I think my experience was 6 to 8 hour, 2 hour, sometimes even longer conversations with various different clinical staff. I spoke with different dentists, the lead dentist, Dr. Faraz. We got to know each other fairly well. The practice manager and I had several conversations. And so my experience was fits and stops and starts.
Sure.
And there were several times when I thought that it was not going to happen because you'd have a conversation and they'd be like, oh, yeah, that's great. And then nothing would happen, right? So you're having conversations in the spring and then nothing happens. And there are a couple of different reasons for that. And I don't know if we touched on it in the previous conversation, but the time of year that you're coming, if you're going to the Middle East and you're from a place where a really hot day is 100 degrees, they don't want to bring you when it's 130, 140, degrees out.
So you don't just turn around, get back on a plane and head home, right? They're not trying to scare you away.
Yeah, there are specific things that you have to do to tackle the heat that when you don't come from a hot place, you don't know. So there's, you can't leave anything in your car or it's going to melt or explode. When you are in the high heat, you have to turn off your water heater and reverse your heating system for water. So the hot water becomes the cold and the cold becomes the hot because it's coming from the roof. And so it's baking in the sun, so there are those kinds of things. And then the other thing is they didn't want to bring me during Ramadan because everything's shut during the day and people are focusing in on their family and their spiritual life. And they are not as interested in keeping appointments. And for the Middle East, if you're going someplace like Saudi or other places, they might reverse the hours at the practice. So you're shut during the day and then you're seeing patients at night.
Interesting.
Okay. More common for Saudi based on what my South African's, her sister was telling me. So, there are those considerations. So your conversation should be in depth and, covering ethics and practice philosophy and treatment modalities. They had an ozonator at the clinic. I had never used an ozonator.
Yeah.
I learned how to do that. They sent pictures, or at least my experience was a packet of information on the country and then a packet of information on the clinic as well. And then they'll go over licensure and visa process, which may be different from what they specifically tell you. Okay. So the setup, you don't know what you're walking into, right? Exactly. You have some idea, But you're arriving, my experience was to arrive on a tourist visa.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Then the licensure process for the country happens, right? And there may be a lag, right? We talk about island time when
Yeah.
we're referring to going to Hawaii and how things process more slowly. And so a level of bureaucracy for each country is going to be different. And, I had to have a physical exam when I got there, and they did, I don't remember if they did a tuberculin skin test or if it was just an x ray.
Mm-hmm.
But, they wanted my vaccination records. And so, you can expect the process for interviewing to be very long. They're probably going to ask questions that might seem very invasive. Okay.
Give us an example of that. I would love to know like what they might ask.
So I wanted to do this so badly. I just was an open book.
Yeah.
They wanted to know about my travel history. Where have I been? Which had been pretty much Canada and a quick foray into Mexico. So nowhere, basically, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Hawaii, went to Hawaii. That doesn't really count. Still United States, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So no international experience at all. They knew I was divorced. I had no children. They knew I didn't have a mortgage payment, that I was letting my lease go to do this. They knew
Wow.
I didn't have a car payment. And they were very excited because I was pretty ideally situated. I didn't have a bunch of debt,
Mm-hmm.
right? So they knew a lot about me before I ever even got on the plane.
That's incredible.
Okay. So those questions in the United States are no fly, no go,
Oh yeah.
right?
Yeah. I mean, there's laws against a lot of
There's
those
laws
questions.
against that. And so it depends on how badly you want to do this, right?
Sure.
I wanted to go so badly. And at the time, it didn't really matter where I went, less about where, more about going. So they're going to ask questions about worldview, probably. And, you should have a pretty good idea of what their leave policies are. So I was straight commission after 1 month of acclimation, where I was not expected to pay rent or to pay for the car. And in that time, I was starting to see patients. Okay. Was the process for the paperwork portion of my visa and everything, was that all complete? No, it wasn't. You want to be careful, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, you're a guest and you don't want to get booted. So I would just recommend that you exercise caution there.
Can I ask real quick about the interview process again, though? Because what I was hearing from you is mostly your future coworkers at that point. Was there also like agency interviews and there was like pre-interviews and all that kind of stuff, or not so much?
This was directly through the clinic, and the practice manager at the time, who I had connected with. I think we got together on Facebook after I got divorced. I'm trying to remember. And
Mm.
she was a font of information. Her name was Susan. She was a font of information about the country. She had a blog that she was doing. This is a lady who left Canada, went to be the practice manager, was intending to only stay 2 years and ended up staying 10.
Oh, wow. Let me ask, sorry, another follow-up question about
Go
that.
ahead.
Is it because she just loved it? Like she loved the job, she loved the country? Like why did she
Loved
stay?
loved the country, loved setting up and helping the practice get started.
Yeah.
She left American Dental Center and was actually the person who ended up helping to set up and start the dental college.
Oh,
Okay.
nice.
And she let me know that she would not be the practice manager when I finally arrived. So it's one of those things where it takes a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And there are also safety considerations. If you're a woman traveling alone, you really do want to do your research. I had friends who were confident that nefarious things were going on. They were like, you're going to get sold into slavery,
I
or,
mean, there's like movies and stuff about that,
like
right?
the
I mean,
movies,
and
right?
podcasts and all that kind of, yeah.
So I was like, yeah, I don't think so. But, I had an international calling card with me in the event that things were not what they seemed.
Mm-hmm.
I also knew to go straight to the embassy, don't give up your passport, these kinds of things. Because, trafficking really it's real.
Right.
So
But how do you protect yourself against those scammers and stuff like that? Yeah, there's got to be a way to find out how legitimate some of these
um
practices are.
right, because anybody can have a website nowadays, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So, you might want to contact the embassy and see if they can direct you, whichever country you're looking at. If you're doing the contractor military side of things, then that's safe, right? But private practice, private clinic, you probably want to speak to previous employees. You want to find out what happened to the previous hygienist,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think there was a hygienist in between when the practice opened and then when I came. I think I was number 3. And the person number 2, there were some different thoughts on who really needs scaling and root planing, and right,
Mm-hmm.
because it's straight commission. And
Sure.
so, these are conversations that might be a little uncomfortable, but that you need to have
Mm-hmm.
to determine whether or not you're a good fit.
I knew we were going to try and keep this one a little bit shorter, but I have so many follow-up questions for you. Do you mind if I
Okay.
ask a couple
Yeah.
like
Shoot.
off the wall, just from what you said?
Sure.
So Ramadan,
Okay.
it's not something that you are generally impacted with here in the United States, right? Definitely lots of people that practice, but it doesn't kind of move into our world a lot. So when you had gone there, were you aware of a lot of like the cultural, historical beliefs and seeing it firsthand in a country that practices it? So I don't want to say strict because it's not strictly, but just so they practice it. How is that affecting you? What were your thoughts about it?
I think Ramadan, my first year there, was in, I think it was May or June. I don't remember. We could look at the calendar and find out if you really wanted to know. But my friends that I had made gave me advice because they all went home for Ramadan. They were like, okay, so the liquor store is going to be shut. If you drink, you're going to want to stock up, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you arrive along with your visa and all of that, you might also want to apply for a liquor passport.
I was
So,
just going to ask about that. I'm glad you're okay. Keep going though, but
okay.
we'll circle back to the liquor passport in a
So
little bit.
that's a separate application, and your office, your employer actually has to sign off on it. And so you get a little liquor passport book, and they are tracking what and how much. I don't remember exact like dollar amounts. You can ask for a certain dollar amount a month that you can spend, right? And then above that amount, that's it. There's no more. So, yes, very interesting. So, during
Nice.
Ramadan, the liquor store is not open at all.
Mhm.
All of the grocery stores are shut. Things are only open at night.
Were there like street vendors and street food and like everyone, like I don't want to say a party, but there was like kind of more activity at nighttime just kind of help with all of that or not so much?
Right. So, my experience was that I don't think anything was open during the day
Mm.
during Ramadan that I can remember. Like the gas station, yeah, that's open. But this is a occasion where you want to plan ahead,
Mhm.
and they are spending that time in reflection, and I didn't know a lot about Ramadan when I went. I still don't know a lot about Ramadan, but my experience was that it was kind of like 30 days of Christmas. So family time,
Mm-hmm.
and then the breaking of the fast is a pretty big occasion, and people are spending it with their families. And so they're less likely to do appointments, even if it's offered in the evenings.
Mm-hmm.
And then for the Eid holidays, people are again focusing on family, but a lot of times people travel. So there's the Eid that marks the end of Ramadan. And then a couple of, let's see, maybe it's a couple months later, there's another Eve that marks, I think it's service, if I remember correctly. So, people travel for Eid quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And my friends were leaving during that time. I learned to scuba dive because there really wasn't anything else to do.
Sure. Where did you learn to scuba dive? Was it in like a pool, or was it like in the like a lake or river?
Both ocean and in the pool. They start you in the pool. And that
Yeah.
was through one of the resorts. So, because tourism even then was a pretty good industry for Oman.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's become even more so now.
I think so too. I feel like they're having bigger events also in Oman than than they used to. I want to go back to the ozonation thing because like
Okay.
ozone, I assume you're talking about ozone.
Yeah.
When you say ozonation, right? I've never experienced it myself. I feel like it's interesting that you have to go abroad to find this technology.
So,
What did you find clinically as far as like the differences?
well, clinically, I had carte blanche. So whatever instruments I wanted, whatever, I had a EMS piezo and a EMS small little Profi jet, similar to what now you see for air polishing.
Yeah.
Really very interesting.
Did they force you into the ozonation? Like, I mean, not to say force you, but like, were they saying, hey, this is technology you kind of have to use?
This is technology that we believe in. And if you want to use it, we would be very happy for you to do that.
And did you adopt it pretty seamlessly, or did you kind of steer away from it?
No, I used it. I don't remember if we charged for that. I don't believe we did. So it was just an adjunct that I could use. So, and I had a high evacuation right there next to wherever I was doing it.
Perfect.
And then I was using a Nomad for x-rays.
Was that new for you, or had you used that in the States as well?
That was new for me. Now we have a Nomad currently at my workplace, and the steps for training on the Nomad were completely different. When I was in Oman, it was, here's a Nomad. And
point and shoot.
Point and shoot.
Good luck.
So
right.
My US employer is like, watch the video on the point and shoot, and, and then take a little test. And, if you don't keep the shield parallel to your body, guess what?
Scatter, right?
Scatter. So guess what? Probably going to develop cancer later in life because I was not using the Nomad correctly.
But how are your x-rays? Did they turn out okay? Right? Like that's all we do. Like it baffles me. Like when, on the one hand, we're so smart and educated individuals. On the other hand, we're sticking our fingers in kids' mouths holding the x-ray sensors just so we can get the shot. Like, we don't care. Just light us up. It's fine.
Exactly.
What, how was like making friends? Because I feel like it'd be kind of lonely over there. I mean, you probably have your coworkers that are also international, but did you have friends with locals?
So friends with locals through the people that you meet at the practice. So one of my friends, Samiha Al-Harthi, she was one of the front desk ladies. And I was overjoyed when I saw her on Anthony Bourdain's No Reservations, because he did.
What?
Yes.
No reservations.
No reservations.
Sorry,
he went and had dinner with her household, her mother, her grandmother, And yeah.
Get Out of Town.
Yeah. So
we're gonna go back and watch that tonight, Allison and I. Okay.
Yes, yeah.
Love it.
It's a fantastic episode. So, and yeah, totally recommend that. So yeah, you make friends at the practice, but then also there are organizations. So there's an organization called Internations that holds events, and you go and you meet people.
Like speed dating, Internation speed dating? Like what do they do?
It's nice if you can go with someone that you know so that you can have introductions. But I think I went solo the first time, and you just have to be fearless, honestly.
Yikes.
And
all of us hygienists that are not exactly the most outgoing and extroverted.
But remember, we're experts at small talk, right?
That's true.
Because every hour we're, hi, how are you? What was your day like today? What else do you have going on? Right? So we have that going for us. And I met some incredible ladies at Internations, and they were like, hey, we're going to go have tea. And we went and had high tea at one of the hotels. And then
were they British, these people?
My friend Kathy is British. She is an English teacher. She's at Sultan Qaboos University now, I believe. And at the time, she was at the British Council teaching English. And that is a whole nother episode. The language development facilities that foreign countries employ to make sure that their people speak good English, right?
Yeah.
And then I met a doctor of environmental studies and sustainability who was from Toronto.
Oh.
And she recently finished the FIFA that happened.
Yeah.
That was her project.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow. That's a huge project.
Yeah. So she lives in Qatar.
Can you say that one more time? Hold on. Say that.
Qatar?
Okay. Because I think we all say it differently. Like, we say it wrong, right?
I
say Qatar or whatever, right?
I don't know what's wrong and what's right. I just
I feel like you're probably more right than I am. And I feel like that sounds a lot like my patients that I asked, like, can you please say it one more time? And they're like, Qatar.
Okay. I could be wrong, but that's how the people that I was hanging out with pronounced it. Yeah, just really wonderful ladies. In fact, other people that I met through Kathy, who were English teachers, I went and somebody was stationed in Lyon, France. So when I went to Paris, I made a trip to Lyon. You meet people, you get to know people, and then you go visit people. And then Kathy was also a member of an organization called Couchsurfing. And so I was exposed to that through Kathy, and she would host people. And I was like, this is so much fun. I need to do this. So I started hosting people.
That's brave. That's so brave.
It's brave. You have to be brave to just store everything, pick up and go. I arrived, like I said, January 1st. And the office manager and one of the dentists met me, and they took me to the apartment, which the clinic actually rents, because you as a foreigner don't just get to go rent an apartment, right? The vehicle was in the practice's name, and basically they said, here's a map. When you wake up tomorrow, the location is on the map. Okay. Just remember, count the roundabouts. Roundabouts are very common in the Middle East. Count the roundabouts, get off at roundabout number, I don't remember now, but like 5. And if you get to the airport, you've gone too far. Come back. You can't get lost. Stay on the freeway. So when you wake up, show up at the clinic, we'll do a walkthrough, So you have to have a certain level of fearlessness to do this. So.
Oh my gosh. I'm so happy that you came back on and did a recap with us. Thank you so much for this.
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
It brings a lot of nostalgia to my heart, my mind. The time I spent in the Philippines and just all the, Dominican Republic, Guatemala, Costa Rica, all the places I've been to, with dental mission trips and things like that. I couldn't say it enough. I think we said it on the other episode too, or the first time we recorded, but I wish everyone could do it. I wish everyone could get that kind of sense of there's a bigger world out there beyond kind of our communities and our states and our nation and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. Well,
I love the message that you brought.
And, no matter where you go, when somebody smiles, they're happy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what we do. We help people smile.
Do you want people to contact you? I didn't even bother asking you if you wanted people to reach out to you. Would you feel comfortable if they did?
That would be okay.
What email address would you like them to send something to?
So you can reach me at my Gmail account. It's tjhusbands@gmail.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being on.
No problem. It was great chatting with you.
Yeah, this is a tale, oh yeah, a tale of two hygienists. So there might be only one, bringing the best of dental knowledge, and we do it all with ease. We cover oral health and screening, and preventing gum disease. We're gonna do a lot of learning, and have a little bit of fun working at the dentist. A tale of two hygienists.